Ghosts ain't always the rattle and chain kind, friend. Sometimes they just knock. 3 hard raps. On a December night so cold it'll freeze the spit in your mouth. And when you open the door, it's your dead wife's face staring back. Blood soaking through a silk dress, finer than anything this ranch will ever see. That's how she found me. Wyoming winter, cutting like a razor, snow piling up past the fence posts, and me dreaming about Sarah, my wife, 6 years in the ground by then. I was dreaming about our wedding day when the knocking started. Sharp, desperate, real enough to jolt me out of that memory faster than a rattlesnake strike. I stumbled to the door in my long johns and boots, lamp in one hand, expecting maybe a drifter caught in the storm. Opened it up, and there she was. Sarah's face, Sarah's eyes, Sarah's hands shaking in the freezing air. For a heartbeat, I thought the whiskey had finally rotted my brain. Or maybe God decided to play the cruelest joke he could think of. But it wasn't Sarah. It was her twin sister, Anna. A woman I'd only heard about in letters, standing on my porch, with bruises around her throat, like a necklace of purple flowers, and terror in those familiar blue eyes. Her lips were blue with cold. She looked past me into the dark, like it was already inside the house, and whispered, "He's coming. He's coming for me." She told me her name was Anna, but for 3 days I couldn't stop calling her Sarah in my head. Couldn't help it. Same red-brown hair that used to catch the sun on Sunday mornings. Same way of cupping a tin mug in both hands like the heat might run out before she finished. Even the way she moved through my cabin. Hell, it was like watching my wife come back from the dead and rearrange my bachelor mess into something resembling a home. But the bruises. Christ, the bruises told a different story. I'd worn the star down in Texas. I knew the shape a man's fingers leave when he's trying to choke the life out of someone smaller than him. Split lip that was still healing. Fingerprints on her throat where someone had squeezed hard enough to leave marks for weeks. Burns on her wrists that looked like rope, or maybe wire. And when she finally rolled up her sleeves by the fire on the 3rd night, I saw the roadmap of her marriage. Scars running up both forearms like railroad tracks leading straight to hell. "His name is Marcus Kane," she said, staring into the flames. "He owns half of Chicago's freight lines. Ships, trains, warehouses. More money than God, and twice as mean." Wind was rattling the shutters hard enough to wake the dead, the way it does up here, when it's got nothing better to do than remind a man he's alone. "Started with a slap when dinner was cold," she continued, her voice steady now, like she'd practiced this speech in her head 1,000 times. "Then a shove when I spoke too freely in front of his business partners. Then locked doors. Servants watching my every move. Threats against anyone who tried to help." She dragged that old quilt tighter around her shoulders, the one Sarah pieced the first winter we were married. I hadn't the heart to take it back. I should have taken it back, but something in me couldn't. Anna needed it more than my memories did. "He killed someone," she whispered. "A young maid who tried to slip me a letter from an old friend. Pushed her down the stairs and made it look like an accident. When I confronted him..." Her hand went to her throat. "He nearly finished what he started." Now here's where you need to understand something about the kind of woman Anna was. She wasn't just running. She drugged his whiskey with laudanum, cleaned out his safe, and caught the first train west with a leather journal full of evidence. Names, dates, bribes, all of it written in her neat handwriting like she was keeping a cookbook instead of a record of sins. "He'll come looking," I said. Wasn't a question. Yes. Those blue eyes, Sarah's eyes, but fiercer somehow, met mine across the fire. Marcus doesn't like losing his possessions. I stood up, walked to the window where I could see my cattle dark shapes against the snow. No man has the right to put his hands on a woman in anger. You can stay as long as you need. The silence stretched out long enough that I thought maybe she'd fallen asleep. When I turned back, tears were streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Sarah was right about you. I'd just nailed my own feet to the floorboards, and I knew it. That was mine, stranger. I just didn't know yet how far down that path would take me." January bled into February. Snow turned to slop. And somewhere along the line, I quit flinching when she brushed past me in the narrow kitchen. Anna proved herself more capable than I'd expected. While I tended the herd, she transformed my cabin, cooked meals that didn't taste like boot leather, mended my shirts with stitches so fine they were almost invisible, filled the silence I'd grown used to with soft humming as she worked, old songs I half remembered from somewhere deep in my childhood. But it was the evenings that tested me. She'd settle into Sarah's old rocking chair, lamplight catching gold in that auburn hair, and read aloud from the book she'd brought from Chicago, her voice painting pictures of distant places while Wyoming wind howled outside, like all the lonely ghosts in the territory were having a convention. One night, the fire burned low, and the whiskey tasted like forgiveness. I carried her to bed still half-buttoned, both of us pretending we didn't know whose ghost was watching from the corner. Outside, the wind carried a sound that made my blood run cold. Horses, still distant, but coming closer. Marcus Kane rode into Laramie like he owned it. And within an hour, he damn near did. I got the news from Tom Morrison, my nearest neighbor, and one of the few men I truly trusted. He rode up at dawn, his horse lathered and his face grim. "There's a man in town asking about you," Tom said, without preamble. "Rich fellow from back east. Says he's looking for his sick wife." Anna dropped the bucket of chicken feed. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. "Description matches her," Tom continued, jerking his chin toward Anna. "And he's got papers. Court orders, medical documents, the works. Sheriff Williams is already counting the bribe money." "He found me," she whispered. "Dear God, he actually found me." My arm went around her waist instinctively. "What's Kane saying exactly?" Tom spat into the dirt. "Claims she's mentally unstable. Got documents from some Chicago judge saying she needs to be committed to an asylum. Says she's dangerous to herself and others." He shook his head. "It's horseshit, but it's official horseshit. And Williams won't care, as long as the money's good." Anna made a sound like a wounded animal. "He's going to lock me away. Put me in one of those places where no one will ever hear from me again." Her fingers dug into my arm. "I've seen what happens to women who disappear into those hospitals. They never come out." "Over my dead body," I said, and meant every word. Tom studied us both with eyes that had seen enough of life to recognize truth when it stared him in the face. "This woman doesn't look crazy to me. Scared, maybe. Hurt, certainly. But not crazy." "She's not," I said flatly. "Her husband's been beating her. She ran to escape him." "Then you've got a problem, friend." Tom's expression was sympathetic, but realistic. "Kane's got half the town convinced he's St. Peter himself, come to rescue his poor, deluded wife. And Williams..." He trailed off, but we both knew what Sheriff Williams was, a man who'd sell his own mother for the right price. Anna stepped forward, her chin lifting with sudden determination. "Then we fight. I won't go back to that man. I'd rather die first." Looking at her, bruised but unbroken, afraid but fierce, I made my choice. Again. Same path, further down. "We fight," I agreed. They came at noon, sun high and mean, glare bouncing off the snow till a man couldn't hardly see. I'd spent 3 days preparing. Moved the cattle to the far pasture, loaded my Winchester and checked my Colt 45. Made sure Anna knew where I kept the spare ammunition and had her hide in the root cellar until it was over. That morning she'd caught my face between her palms, her eyes fierce with unshed tears. "Come back to me, you hear me? Come back." I kissed her hard and desperate, tasting the salt of her fear and my own mortality. When we broke apart, she pressed something into my hand. Sarah's wedding ring, the one I'd worn on a chain around my neck for 6 years. "For luck," she whispered. I stood on the porch with Sarah's ring cutting into my palm through the pocket lining, sweat freezing on my top lip, watching that plume of dust climb the valley like smoke from a grass fire. Kane rode at the front, flanked by Sheriff Williams and 4 men who wore their guns, like other men wore shirts, casually, with long practice. "Mister," Kane called out when they were still 50 yards away. His voice was smooth, educated, the tone of a man who'd never been told no in his entire privileged life. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." "I don't see it that way," I replied, my hand resting loose on my gun butt. Kane's smile never wavered. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, perfect everything except the rot underneath. "My wife is a sick woman. Surely you can see that. She needs proper medical care, not to be playing house with some lonely rancher. Ain't many lunatics run 1,000 miles barefoot in winter just to get away from the doctor." Williams shifted in his saddle, looking uncomfortable. "Now see here, we got legal papers." "I've seen Kane's kinda legal before, Williams." My eyes never left the hired guns, cataloging their positions, their weapons, the nervous way the youngest one kept fingering his holster. Back when I wore a badge, we had a word for men who beat their wives. We called them cowards. Kane's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and vicious underneath. "You're harboring a fugitive, an unstable woman who drugged and robbed her own husband. I could have you arrested. You could try." I stepped down from the porch, my boots crunching in the frost. "But here's what's really going to happen. You're going to turn around and ride back to Chicago, and you're going to forget Anna ever existed. Or what? Or I'll put you in the ground next to the last man who thought he could buy whatever he wanted in my county." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my heart beating. One of Kane's men, lean, prison tattoos on his knuckles, started to reach for his weapon. My Winchester roared, kicking up dust between his horse's hooves. The animal reared, nearly unseating its rider, while the sound echoed off the mountains like thunder. "Next one goes center mass," I said calmly, working the lever action. "Your choice. You know what I learned as a ranger? Most men, when faced with actual violence instead of just the threat of it, will back down. They'll bluster and threaten. But when lead starts flying, they remember they're mortal." Kane's face had gone white with fury. "You're making a grave mistake. I have resources you can't imagine. Connections. I got a Winchester and a clear conscience. Out here, that counts for something." That's when Anna made her entrance. She stepped out of the cabin with my spare Colt in her hands and murder in her eyes. Still wore Sarah's quilt around her shoulders like a queen's robe. "Well, Marcus, you found me. Happy now?" Marcus Kane stared at his wife like a man seeing his own ghost, and for the first time since riding into my territory, his composure cracked. "Anna, darling," he managed, his voice strained with false warmth. "You look, well, I've been so worried about you." Anna laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "Have you, Marcus? Worried enough to kill poor Mary for trying to help me? Worried enough to forge medical papers to have me committed? Kane's eyes darted to Williams, then back to Anna. You're confused, my dear. The trauma of your father's death. My father died 10 years ago, Marcus. I mourned him properly then. Anna's voice grew stronger with each word. What I'm mourning now is the woman I used to be. The one stupid enough to believe your lies. She pulled out that leather journal from her dress pocket, held it up for everyone to see. Every beating, every threat, every bribe to keep the servants quiet. Names, dates, amounts. Her smile could have cut steel. Including the $500 you paid Judge Morrison's clerk to forge those commitment papers. I watched Kane's face cycle through emotions. Shock, rage, fear, then cold calculation. The man was cornered, and cornered animals are the most dangerous kind. You little bitch! My rifle swung toward him before the curse fully left his mouth. Finish that sentence, I said quietly, and it'll be the last words you ever speak. Sheriff Williams was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Kane's money was good, but not good enough to risk his neck over a woman who apparently had evidence of federal crimes. And calling a woman a whore to her face, even by implication, that violated the frontier code in ways that could get a man killed, regardless of how much money he had. One of the hired guns actually touched his hat to Anna. Ma'am, maybe we should just... Shut your mouth, Kane snarled at his own man. Anna raised the pistol, and for a heartbeat I thought she might actually pull the trigger. God knew Kane deserved it, but instead, she lowered the weapon and looked her husband straight in the eye. I'm not going back with you, Marcus. Not today. Not ever. You want to try to take me by force? She gestured towards me, then at the surrounding mountains. This is Wyoming territory. We handle our own justice out here. Kane looked around the circle of faces. His hired guns were avoiding eye contact. The sheriff was studying his boots. My rifle remained pointed unwaveringly at his chest. The balance of power had shifted like sand in a windstorm, and everyone knew it. This isn't over, he said finally. It's done, Marcus. Flat, tired, final as a grave shovel hitting stone. Go home, Marcus. Find some other woman to terrorize. I'm done being afraid of you. I watched Kane's face as he realized he'd lost. Not just lost Anna, but lost control of the narrative, lost the upper hand, lost everything his money and influence usually bought him. They left that afternoon, riding back toward Laramie in silence. Kane sat his horse like a man who just discovered the world didn't actually revolve around him. Must have been a hell of a shock. Anna and I stood on the porch, watching them disappear into the distance. When they were finally gone, her legs gave out. I caught her before she hit the ground, held her while she shook with a combination of fear, relief, and something that might have been joy. It's over, she whispered against my chest. It's really over. But I knew better. Stranger. It wasn't over yet. Not quite. The federal marshals came 2 weeks later, but not for Anna. Turns out that journal of hers was worth more than gold. Kane's business practices, the bribes, the intimidation, the suspicious deaths, it all came tumbling down like a house of cards in a windstorm. Last I heard, Marcus Kane was facing charges in 3 states. Some of his political connections suddenly couldn't remember his name. Funny how money stops talking when the law comes calling with evidence. Spring came early to Wyoming that year, melting the snow and bringing with it the smell of new grass and possibility. I'm watching Anna right now, my wife now, though we haven't made it official in any church. She's standing on the porch of our cabin, watching me work with a wild Mustang in the corral. The bruises have long since faded, replaced by freckles from hours spent in the Wyoming sun. Her hands, once soft from city living, now bear the same calluses mine do. She's wearing one of Sarah's old dresses, but she's made it her own, hemmed it shorter for practical work, added pockets, stitched her own pattern along the sleeves. That's Anna in a nutshell. She doesn't try to be Sarah. She honors the memory while living her own life. I think she'd understand. Hell, I think she'd approve. Anna catches me looking and smiles. That smile that's uniquely hers, part mischief and part steel. She's been asking me to teach her to shoot properly, not just point and pray, like she did when Cain showed up. Says a woman living in Wyoming territory needs to know how to protect herself. Can't argue with that logic. The Mustang in the corral finally lets me touch his muzzle, his wild eyes calming as he learns I won't hurt him. Thinking hard thoughts? Anna's voice interrupts my reverie. She's walked over to the corral fence, the evening sun catching gold in her hair. Thinking about how far we've come, I say, moving to her side. She leans into me and I marvel at how natural it feels, being touched with affection instead of need, with partnership instead of desperation. Sarah would have liked seeing you happy again. Sarah would have liked you, I reply honestly. But Anna's the one who taught me the difference between surviving and living. As the sun sets behind the Rockies, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, I think about that December night when a ghost knocked on my door, about the choice I made to let her in, about all the choices that came after. Was it the right choice? Hell, stranger, I don't know if there's such a thing as a purely right choice. We do the best we can with what we've got and hope it's enough. We protect what's ours and try not to become monsters in the process. Anna, no longer Cain, never again Cain. She's building a life here, teaching the ranchers' kids down the valley how to read, writing letters to other women trapped in bad marriages, telling them there's a way out if they're brave enough to take it, turning her pain into purpose. Me? I'm just trying to be the man both Sarah and Anna believed I could be. Some days I succeed. Some days I fall short. But I wake up every morning with a woman who chooses to stay, not because she has nowhere else to go, but because she wants to be here. That's something, isn't it? I didn't save Anna. She saved herself. I just gave her the space to do it. And maybe, in the process, she saved me too. She kept me from turning into the kind of old bastard who talks to an empty chair every night and calls it his wife. From thinking that love only gets one chance in a lifetime. From the loneliness that was eating me alive in that cabin, one Wyoming winter at a time. I've been a lot of things in my life. Texas Ranger, husband, widower, protector. Probably a few other things that aren't fit for polite conversation. But right now, sitting here with a whiskey in my hand and my woman humming in the kitchen, I think I'm finally learning to just be a man. Flawed, trying, doing his best. If this story meant something to you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more tales from the territories where the West was still wild and people were learning what it meant to be free. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from.